you do a day?
About 40.
Oh, my God. How much can you lift?
About 500 pounds.
500 pounds. Oh my God. Wow, you're so strong. What the hell?
I have been working out since I was 5 years old.
Do you go to the gym? No, thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Daniel.
Yes, every day.
Are you lying to me?
I would never lie to you.
What about your 29 Roblox girlfriends? Would you lie to them?
I have broken up with all of them.
Is Kayla mad at you?
Extremely.
Extremely. How are you going to make...
We really need new siding.
After I get my windows. Hey, happy spouse, happy house.
For windows, roofing, siding, and more, everyone can agree on 1-800-HANSONS. Get 50% off installation or no interest and no payments for 2 full years. Offer ends soon.
things right? Uh-oh, it's stinking, dude. It's stinking. It's stinking.
I'll do what I can. I will spend time with her and our son and prove my loyalty to her.
What's your What's your favorite food? What's your favorite food? What's your favorite food?
Probably chicken. I am obsessed.
Wrong. It's not. No, it's not. Wrong.
Damn it, I was so close.
Bro! Stop swearing!
Sorry, I will stop.
You need to see a therapist.
Alright, I'll make an appointment.
That's if Kayla's hot. Do you think Kayla is hot?
Extremely.
Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god, dude. This is the craziest. Bro, who made this? Does this all right there? This guy right here made this. This guy right here. Oh my god.
These are the best redesigns I ever had. These are the best redesigns I ever added to Minecraft. And hey, I heard a YouTube rumor that it's impossible to subscribe and like the video at the same time. So if you want to prove them wrong, then take a simultaneous strike with those 2 buttons down below. It's free and it ups out of time. With the texture updates of 1.14, our Minecraft wooden items started to look a lot different. Not the least of which having to do with the fact we now have more wooden variations to play around with. But also, if you look at the items instead of the blocks placed within the actual world, you can see some differences start to pop out if you study it right. And I think it's here where you can see that it's actually quite a good redesign. I mean, look at the original spruce door texture to what we now have. One looks like programmer art, and the other one looks like something you put in an actual game. And I particularly like the differences that we got to the handles seen on the crimson and warped stem signs. Now they have a crimson and warped stem. But I will say, with all those details that got added, it's weird that if you look at the item slot for the lapis lazuli that goes inside of the enchanting table, that actually became less detailed. Now, I don't know, we can focus on the good redesigns, at least for this one. Minecraft boats used to suck. And I don't think I'm going to make anyone angry by saying that. Because really, when you go and look at how these used to be, they were practically impractical. And I'm not talking about the fact that you used to have to craft one of these using a wooden shovel on Bedrock Edition, although we thought that was a good idea. But rather, in the early days of Minecraft boats, these would just happen to break against anything. Seriously, try taking one of the old boats through a swamp bio, those lily pads turn into landmines. And thankfully, in 1.12, Minecraft boats were massively changed. Now they no longer broke on impact, and they got a lot easier to control. Which is great, but it's unfortunate this would come after the time of when Minecraft used to generate its world, such huge oceans. And really, if you got an ocean sea back in old updates, you would just reset. Even if you had yourself a tree to craft a boat, it wasn't exactly a fun journey. One of the most recent texture changes that was met with applause happened with the bamboo logs. Since during the snapshot phase for Minecraft 1.20, we would not only get a use to turn our bamboo into actual wooden blocks, but we also got this initial texture, where it was yellow on the top despite being green everywhere else. And that made a lot of the community pretty mad, which is why Mojang changed it in the very next snapshot, 22W46A. But they also didn't fully get rid of this. If you wanted green, there was options of that, and if you wanted the yellow coloration, there was also that too. Which for builders is always the best option. If you're gonna ask me which texture I want to build, all of them. We'll always take more for the palette. Back in the first versions of Minecraft, and granted, not the beta, the actual released versions, if you were to punch a tree of any different type, regardless of what it was, you would always break down into oak planks. And it wasn't until later they would actually redesign it so that there were multiple different wood types and oak planks in the game. Look, baby steps are still steps. At least they're moving in the right direction. In the early days of Minecraft Creative, we did not have nearly as many nice features for our creative menu as we do today. For one, there was no categories. Everything was just in a miscellaneous list. And then if you wanted to find something, you're also out of luck. There was no search feature either. Although there's something of a nostalgic charm to looking at this set of blocks like this. We'd all be kidding ourselves if we didn't say them.
Generations ago, apes and humans lived side by side. Why do they hunt? She knows the human secrets. No true stories or apes. They stole my village.
I know where they're keeping the clan.
Oh, maybe they forgot. Never. You know the plan of the apes. IMAX, PG-13, get tickets now.
These are just little things. All what they mean is love. Cause it's the little things that mean an awful love.
Not the new one's better. I mean, there's a reason why mods like Too Many Items came in to show what would have been possible with a creative menu, and thankfully Mojang seemed to follow suit with their own. And particularly, I like the ability to turn on the admin-only items and get things like the debug stick, the barrier, the command blocks, all that having to type in a command. That's helpful for me. Minecraft villages used to be rare, but a rare thing isn't always a good thing. It definitely isn't always pretty. And so there were some times when you would happen to spawn next to a village or find one out in the wild, and it would just not blend in with its surroundings. And as we got more biomes, that became painfully noticeable. So thankfully, in the Village and Pillage update, Mojang took this and made the villages actually change to redesign to their spawn location. So a village spawns in a savanna biome where there's acacia planks, and of course it's going to be built out of acacia. And then having the villages also match their clothes to the environment's a nice touch. I do miss some of the old coats that the villagers used to wear, but I also really like the swamp villager hat. Makes me wish that there was a proper swamp village in the game, but I digress. Did you know you used to be able to get wool in a desert? Yeah, it wasn't because there was any sheep wandering across the desert sands, but really it was just because prior to 1.8, desert temples would spawn with wool blocks for decorations, and it wasn't changed until later to redesign these to have colorful terracotta instead. But you do not have to look at a comparison for long to see that this was definitely a necessary change. I don't need my desert temple to be flammable. And considering these can already be partially buried anyway, yeah, I think it just makes sense. And Mojang did too. That's the redesign. When Prismarine was first added to the game, the texture was noticeably darker than what we have today. And because of how dark the original texture was, the way that color changes over time, yeah, it was not subtle to say the least. Granted, we're looking at a sped up GIF here, but even then, when you compare this to where it actually ended up at, it's easy to say it's a lot better integrated nowadays. I mean, most people don't even notice that it changes from blue to green, hence why we've included it in our fact videos. Nowadays, thanks to hardcore Minecraft, the Totem of Undying texture is iconic. Kind of has to be when everyone's holding it in their secondary slot, which makes me even more thankful that it isn't the totem texture that we originally had. Since back in Snapshot 16W39A, the Totem of Undying was originally supposed to be added to 1.11 like this, which more resembles a peeled banana than actually a villager. And honestly, I'd rather carry around a totem that looks like Sandiction in my hotbar, but I might have just wanted to do that anyways. Minecraft sponges used to be a laughing stock. I mean, they're one of the ugliest textures in the game, and to make matters worse, after they were originally added, they actually had their purpose stripped from them. When they were first added, sure, you could use them to drain water, but then more than they used to too. And then also following those changes, it would get a new texture in 1.14 along with the rest of them, which is quite the glow up, both in its purpose and in its function. In the older days of Minecraft, when you mined an ore, it would just drop itself, which means that the best thing you could possibly hope for your iron and gold ores was a 1-to-1 ratio. But then, as of 1.17, along with the new textures, you also got a much better return on these through the addition of a new item called raw ore. And now we didn't just have to save our Fortune 3 pickaxe for redstone, diamonds, and lapis. But instead, if we mined everything, we could get a whole bunch more copper, iron, and gold. And then, if you're worried about the storage that you'd lose from not using Silk Touch, don't worry. Craft it into a full material block, and now you're holding 9 in the slot instead of just 1. You would think when you're making the texture for a glass block, one of the main things you'd want to worry about is being able to see through it. But you also have to let the player know that it is there, otherwise it's an invisible barrier. So how do you get around that? Well, for the 2 different glass textures that the game has had, we can see very different interpretations. Now, the original one had way too many white specks floating out in the middle of the air, that sure, it was clear that there was a block there, but it also wasn't very clear to see through. And so the one that we have today is actually a nice middle ground. And funnily enough, the idea for this really stemmed back from the original designs that we saw in the version 2.0 April Fool's snapshot, where we both had stained glass and a more clear glass texture. So if anything good came from a joke, we can say that this is it. In the 1.21 update, we're going to be getting a lot more copper items to play around with. I'm most focused on the creative menu, simply for the reason that if you search up copper now, since there's now exactly 9 items of variation here that we're seeing, it all lines up really nice in the creative menu search. Yeah, I'd be lying if I said that wasn't a little satisfying to see. Alright, pop quiz. Which one of these is coal and which one is charcoal? Well, when it was first added in, it was nearly impossible to tell the difference, considering that charcoal had the same texture as coal. And it wasn't until a few updates later that charcoal would get its own texture like this. But really, they both burn for the same amount of time and they have the same use, so there wasn't much of a drawback for getting them confused. Although I guess it would have been confusing to try and stack both of these together in a chest. Did you know pigs could drop brown mushrooms? Sure enough, back in the Java Edition survival test, there was a time where these mobs only dropped brown mushrooms on death. But obviously, this was changed to a pork chop when that item got added in. Oh, it makes me wonder, eat a mushroom stew made out of pig shrooms? Is that still vegetarian? I don't know. Of all the items in Minecraft, there's only one that has the word blocks in its name that isn't an actual block. And of course, that would be the music disc for the track, well, blocks. But that's also why it sticks out like a sore thumb when you type in the word block into the creative menu. Obviously, one of these is not like the others. In case you didn't know, leaves in Bedrock Edition turn white when you leave them in the snow. But if you play that version and you never noticed, that might not be your fault, since it's not an instant transition. And instead, it'll take some time in the tundra before it finally changes their tone. Alright, pop quiz. What mob is this? I'll give you a hint, it's not a silverfish. Actually, it's just an endermite. See, when the endermite was added in, it was just a purple version of the silverfish, before it eventually got this new smaller model that we see today. Minecraft has plenty of minor frustrations, and sometimes it's hard to notice them until they happen to you. Like in the past when you would type into bed, only for it to close the chat window once you wake up. And thankfully, that's been rectified for us going forward. Now, when you take away all the nostalgia, it's hard to argue that early versions of Minecraft didn't just look ugly. And a big part of that is that we didn't have things like smooth lighting to clean up our world. So if you wanted that back in the past, the best you had was a mod called Better Light by Mr. Messiahs. But it was because of that light by Mr. Messiah that Mojang was so impressed that they actually used the code and help from Mr. Messiah to eventually code the smooth lighting into the game itself. And as a thank you, Mojang would also give Mr. Messiah a unique cape. Which, in case it didn't feel cool enough for already getting a thank you from Mojang, an exclusive cape really bumps that up. When hoppers were first added into the game, they initially only had a work-in-progress texture, but maybe not in the way you're thinking. Because as you can see, this only showed up when you have the hopper inside of your inventory. But even with that said, it is still pretty funny to walk around with a WIP just hanging around in your hand. I must be a bad trainer, because no matter how many times I try to tame wolves, I can never get them to sit still. Though the reason for that might just be because when you summon a wolf on top of a slime block and you tame it, you can't actually get it to sit down. Since the way the slime block works, it's a little bit less than a full block size. And it confuses the wolf's hitbox so that it sits down and then stands right back up. I can't say I blame them. I also don't want to sit down before it again. This block only exists in Pocket Edition, or at least it used to. Because nowadays this block is a whole lot different, and it's the stone cutter they're all used to. But sure enough, when it was first added into Pocket Edition, it did used to be a full block in size. Like a lot closer to a furnace than anything that we're used to today. And while the old texture was boring, it looks a lot easier to stand on, so it might have been nice to have a safer option. As you'll see, back in the beta snapshots for Bedrock, there was a glitch that let frogs eat any goats that got nearby. So even if they can't eat fireflies, at least the goats weren't poisonous. This was probably patched out, since it was just some leftover prototype code. When you think of mobs, you're probably picturing something like this, or this, but probably not this. Though when they were first added in back in the Java Edition survival test, they were just that. And initially, signs would only spawn by pressing the B key, at which point it would say to text, this is a test of the sign, each line through 15 characters. When Mojang makes a change, they aren't always decisive, and sometimes that means a feature gets added in and then removed in a later update. But this seems particularly indecisive, because back in the if-dead stages of Minecraft, 4 updates in a row saw leaves change to not decay, decay, not decay, and then decay once again, which is quite the identity crisis, but luckily it's been solved. If you've been raiding bastions in the Nether, then you know that it takes plenty of luck to find a pig step disc, but apparently that's not the only rare pig step in the game, since as a snapshot 20W22A, piglins will occasionally dance after hoglet hunting, so if you're part of that lucky few who gets to see it, this will definitely establish you some dominance. When you're exploring in Minecraft, we all know to pack a bunch of food, yet somehow I still never seem to bring enough. And would you believe it, that was even worse in the beta versions of Minecraft, since back then, only the cookies would stack, and even then you could only have up to 8 of them in a given stack. And thankfully nowadays we've got much better pockets for our pork. Nowadays shields are a necessity for PvP, but it turns out there's something even better, or at least there will be. Seeing the separate combat test snapshots, Mojang currently has a change that will allow shields with banners to have more absorption, giving 10 instead of 5. And while this will likely be replaced with actual shield variants in the final run, right now, a little banner goes a long way. See, well before rabbits got added in 1.8, you'd also see these much smaller dwarf rabbits that were jumping around the Twilight Forest. Aside from also being rabbits, they look very different in design from what we got in the day. And honestly, I'm surprised the mod is a more simple mod than what we got in the game. But hey, they both have one that looks like an evil rabbit, just these ones are always passive. No Monty Python reference here. Before Tallgrass made it into Minecraft, we had something called Wildgrass, which was a mod that added on an extra layer of grass on top of our regular grass to create a kind of pseudo-tall grass. Though when we eventually did get tall grass into Minecraft, it was still significantly taller than the Wildgrass mod, which I guess is why it's not called tall Wildgrass, huh? When the Drowned was first added to Minecraft, it looked a lot different, since the original concept for the Drowned mod had it looking like a half-skeleton, half-zombie mix, which is not only a lot creepier, but it also blends in pretty well with the dirt that you see at the bottom of the riverbed. Though I suppose it makes sense why it was changed, because this doesn't go too gory for Minecraft. But it worked for the zombie pigmen, so who's to say? This might look like a hopper, but it's actually a chute, which is just one of the many different blocks in Buildcraft that went on to inspire the way that we move our items in Minecraft. But what's even more interesting about the Buildcraft chute is that it actually was called the Hopper, but changed the name when Minecraft used it in the vanilla release. I guess that would get pretty confusing. But it also makes the inspiration pretty clear to see. If we were to cast a fishing rod and then zoom in, you notice that in Java, the fishing bobber is a 2D texture, but in Bedrock it's a 3D model cube. And why the difference, I'm not exactly sure. It seems like more effort to do the 3D cube anyway, but it does fit Minecraft a little better, so I think it's fair. If you were to get a glass pane inside of your inventory in both versions, then you'll notice that in Bedrock they have a 3D icon, while in Java the glass panes use a 2D sprite, which could be a problem if you were to dye your glass pane, since a light gray stained glass pane is a lot more obvious in Bedrock than it's ever been in Java. The next time you're on fire, you may want to look for a candle, because while it won't help, in Bedrock Edition, it is possible to light a candle while your body's on fire. And the same also goes for campfires as well, which doesn't solve your problem, but it might kill 2 birds with 1 stone. If we were to open up the book and quill in Bedrock, you'll notice that we can see 2 pages at once, while in Java, we're only seeing 1 at a time, which is a little more straightforward, but on Bedrock it actually feels like a book. If only it was easier to type on console. When you see a snowball, the last thing you're thinking of is fire. Well, we took a snowball through a flame, the projectile will actually ignite, and in Bedrock, it can even cause fire damage to mobs, making that snow golem a proper flamethrower. Speed bridging is a big deal for the PvP community, and while it's a big skill to place blocks like this on Java, on Bedrock it's possible to place blocks without sneaking to the edge, and that'll even allow us to sneak bridge on horse for some reason. Redstone and water don't mix, or at least that's what we think on Java. But if you place any of these redstone components in a lake on Bedrock Edition, it'll work just as they do on the surface. If we were to feed our mobs these different items on Bedrock, you'll notice that each different food has a different particle effect as a